Welcome to Mayoral Candidates, a special series on the candidates running for office to be the next mayor of the city of Calgary. Today, I'm talking with Jyoti Gondek, city councillor from Ward 3 and one of our mayoral candidates for the next coming election. Thank you very much for accepting my invitation to be on this show. It's an honor to have you here.
Well, thanks for the kind invitation. It's a pleasure to join you.
That's amazing. Now, I want to go straight to the point.
Okay.
Why do you think citizens of Calgary should get involved in elections?
It's a really good question, and I've heard this from a lot of people. Why does this matter? Why is it important that I vote? And I'll put it this way. I think it's important to make sure that you are choosing leaders who represent you, people who will listen to you, and people who will fight for the things that you need in your community and your city, people that understand what your lived experience is, and people who can make change happen that makes our quality of life better. So I think anyone who has the opportunity to vote should absolutely take advantage of it. And I just want to remind everybody, you're voting for a new mayor, you're voting for your city councillor. It's also important to remember that you're voting for a school board trustee. And I think it's important for people to know, if you have seen the provincial curriculum that was released and you have any thoughts or concerns about it, who you choose as your school trustee is the person that can make changes if you would like to see that happen. So please remember, the election is really important on 3 different levels.
That is amazing. Now, let's talk about a matter that is dear to my heart and it proves to be crucial during the pandemic. What is your vision about art and cultural landscape of the city?
I'm really glad you asked that question, and I've had an amazing opportunity through the pandemic, as difficult as it has been on all of us, to speak to a lot of people in the creative sector. So a lot of musicians, a lot of artists, a lot of people who basically helped keep our spirit uplifted. Yeah. And the message that they've given me has been consistent. They really appreciated the support for local talent during the pandemic, and they hope we don't forget that when we come out of the pandemic. And it's also consistent that we realize that the creative sector has a big role to play in our mental health. Yes. It has a big role to play in the narrative of our city. Arts are generally sort of a documentation of who we are at a particular point in time. And so I think it's important for cities to understand that an investment in the creative sector is actually an investment in your city's future. Not just for the business reasons. I mean, there's a GDP argument, there's the employment argument, and those things are important. But let's not forget that the arts shape us, and the arts grow our children to be healthy human beings. The brain development of children who are exposed to the arts is so much stronger than kids who are deprived of that. So I think we need to remember that arts and culture and the creative sector really makes us human beings.
Thank you very much. Now, the next question is, how can you make culture more affordable for newcomer artists and the public?
Oh, you know what? I think affordability is such an important factor in so many things, but we only talk about it in limited ways, right? We talk about affordability of housing, right? Or affordability of public transportation. We forget about access to things that keep your soul alive, right? Like, you have to feed your soul, just like you feel your body, or feed your body. So I think it's important to get the arts out to where people are. If you're not meeting people where they are and you're expecting them to go to a certain sector or district to appreciate the arts, they're not always going to be able to. So I think, taking advantage of the spaces that we have in communities, wherever they are, and integrating arts into it is going to be a very important thing in the future. Whether it's a dance performance, whether it is an art exhibit, it doesn't matter. We've got spaces and places in our city that are underused right now. Let's bring them alive with a little bit of vibrancy through the creative sector.
Thank you very much. Now, we know the city is facing a challenging time, even before the pandemic. So I want to know your own opinion, about the current situation, based on these questions. Can you identify 3 major areas, that will have challenges in the city? And how do you think we can, resolve these issues if elected?
It's an interesting question. And I think what I'll do is I'll talk about, 3 different angles
Okay.
to how we become stronger and how we future-proof our city. The first argument is always the economic one. That's the one everybody wants to talk about. You know, what are you going to do to bring the economy back? And I think that's probably the trickiest question for municipal officials, because we don't participate in the income that's generated through a strong economy. We don't benefit from income tax. We are reliant on property tax. So from an economic perspective, municipal officials need to focus on the strength of our real estate sector.
Yep.
And to do that, we need to do things like making sure that our downtown strategy is strong.
Yep.
And I'm very impressed that after 5 years of work, stakeholders in the private sector, community leaders, social sector, and our administration brought us a very strong downtown strategy within which we invested $200 million to make those vacancies come alive. Whether it's a residential conversion, so you have more people living in those spaces, or whether we change how we view those spaces and bring in different types of businesses or uses, that is a big focus. Because the property tax is the important base that we need to remember. Then we need to talk about the social condition in the city. Right now, we've got situations of poverty, homelessness, we've got people with disabilities, we've got people with mental health and addictions issues. How do we serve them? How do we help them? How do we make our society stronger? This is another place where municipal officials don't necessarily have jurisdiction, but we have a lot of influence. And we have a lot of ability to bring people together and be a convener, to have those hard conversations about how do we make sure a roof over your head is not where we stop? How do we make sure that once you're in that home, we support you, help you get over your addiction, or help you with the issue of poverty you're having? So you've got the economic, you've got the social, and then you've already brought it up. What about the creative? How do we make sure the city has a soul?
Yeah.
And I think we need to continue the investment that we've made in the arts sector. I was very proud to be part of council when we bumped up the arts and culture budget in 2018, and we maintained that increase. I think it was a 70% increase.
Yeah.
So those are the three areas that I think we really need to stay strong in, and we need to stay true.
Thank you very much for the answer. You know, what's brilliant and well answered. Now to my next question. How can we make Calgary a more inclusive society?
Oh, you know, inclusion is a buzzword that gets thrown out without really a lot of thought sometimes, and so I appreciate that question. I think inclusion is necessarily tied to ensuring that people feel like they belong. You need to make people feel, number one, like they're welcomed, and then number two, that they belong. And I can remember doing some research probably about 10 years ago on cities that are immigrant receiving cities and how successful they are in retaining the people that move there. Calgary was the strongest. Calgary was the strongest because people said, I moved here thinking it would be my landing spot and then I would go on to something else, but it feels like home. And so I've chosen to make it my permanent residence. That is something we should be proud of. So I want to make sure that we return to those days where newcomers coming here feel like this is where they belong. And it's not just an immigrant receiving prospect, it's anyone that comes here. I came here from Manitoba and I was welcomed with open arms. I was able to get a great job. I was able to be part of a great community. That's how you make people feel like the city is theirs. It's their home and they belong. But I think there's a lot of work we have to do right now.
Yeah.
I think it's incredibly damaging that there are hate groups that feel that they can spew their vile nonsense about trying to divide us. I think it's incredibly troubling that we have finally started talking about how to be anti-racist, and there's people that are saying, whoa, that's heavy, I don't want to talk about that. Yes, it's heavy.
Yep.
We have to talk about it, we must talk about it, and we must demonstrate a commitment to moving past racism into a place where all are welcome.
Yep.
Because that's how you attract talent, that's how you make people wish to stay in your city, and that's how you show progression. So that's, it's a very difficult question to answer with, you know, a quick response, but I think we need to remain steadfast in being anti-racist, in being welcome to anyone in the LGBTQ2+ community, in every possible way that we can show diversity. We need to embrace it and bring it to our city and keep it here.
Thank you very much. Now, you did mention a bit about downtown, and that leads me to my next question. That, what are your thoughts about the future of downtown? Because, you know, before COVID, you know, like between the hours of 9 and 4, you know, downtown is a bit busy, you know, kind of because of those who are working, coming from outside of the city. But from like 5 down, it's kind of like ghost town, nothing happening, and You know, I've had questions asked, you know, from my friends who visited from other part of the world, from New York, from London, from Paris, from China, which I've been to myself and like, oh, this is bubbling, but how come your city is like nothing's happening? So can you just shed some light on your future plan for Calgary downtown?
Well, let's talk about it in two ways. Number one, let's talk about the technical reason why our downtown has not been as successful as it can be. And that's you know, one of the detriments of Calgary being such a young city. We're a young city that's growing up around an environment where the car was an important part of everybody's life, and we had planning principles in the 40s and 50s, post-war, where we decided that where you work should be separated from where you live, because once you get home, you should put the thoughts of work behind you and enjoy your family. And so we separated things. And so in Calgary, we're the victim of planning principles from the 40s and 50s, where the place that you have recreation is separated from the place where you work, and the place you go to school, and the place you live. And that has increased our reliance on the automobile. It has decreased our investment in public transit, and it's made us who we are. We're just kind of a separated, sort of land use segregated city. And in order to bring things together, and in order to make downtown vibrant, you have to make sure there's things to do that people wish to do in hours that are not office hours. So why would somebody who works here from 9 to 5 and doesn't live downtown want to stay? We have to give them reasons to stay. There's got to be great opportunities to go to the theater, to catch an exhibit somewhere, to have dinner, and things that are affordable. Maybe some pop-up concerts, those types of things. But beyond that, wouldn't it be amazing if the downtown was a place where you could wake up in the morning, get the kids ready for school, you walk a block, you drop one off at childcare, you drop the other off at school, you drop the dog off at the doggy daycare, and you walk 2 more blocks, you're at work, you do your work, lunchtime you go upstairs, you get your teeth cleaned, 4 o'clock you're done, you grab your dry cleaning, you pick up the kids, you pick up the dog, off you go, you're home, you walk over to the grocery store and you prepare your meal. That's how people live in other places where downtowns are vibrant. We didn't even have a grocery store downtown for a very long time. So I think we need to realize what's missing that allows you to have a complete life downtown and put those uses in and those businesses in and bring it to life. It's a big, big commitment. It's a big mind shift, but we can do it.
That is amazing. I love the way you put the coordination together, you know, working, daycare, the kids here and there. And I think that is a very brilliant idea, which I believe the next mayor should put into consideration. Thank you very much for that.
Well, you know what, I'm going to add something to that. Sometimes we talk about ideas in a very disconnected sense. We'll talk about the economy, and we'll talk about the GDP, and we'll talk about land use. It's about people.
Yeah.
It is about understanding how people live their lives. And for a local elected official, it should be about understanding what makes their life easier and what makes their life difficult. And then your job becomes making their life as easy and happy as possible in this city. It's really that simple.
Yeah, that is amazing. Now to the next question. What is your plan to keep our youth productively engaged in the city and raise the opportunities available for them in securing jobs, affordable housing, entertainment, and the rest?
Really good question. You know, I would say the number one thing that we need to do is actually talk to youth. A lot of times we decide what's best for them. We have this sort of parental view of how our kids should succeed. And I think if you talk to them right now and you catch them when they're 15, 16, up to the time that they're about 25 or 30, they're going to tell you that their values and their views on life are probably dramatically different than, you know, mine were at that age. It was just a very different time. It was a different era. And I think we've been very successful as a society in doing things like corporate social responsibility, or this idea of giving back, or the fact that you can work and do good things for society. And I think our kids have embraced that. So I think, you know, some of the important moves that we need to make, we were incredibly successful as an oil and gas city, right? We were great. In the carbon-based economy, we knew what we were doing. But we also learned what the unintended consequences of our actions and behaviors were. And so I think if we are the city that knew how to do oil and gas at that time, and we can see a new opportunity in front of us, I would love to be the city that says, come and be here, come and be at the center of excellence for the transition economy. We understand what we did wrong, and now we are going to transition to something that's more sustainable, something that's cleaner. deliver the same message that every global corporation is delivering, our kids will embrace that. They want to be part of something that's sustainable. And you know, the other thing with youth is when they apply for jobs or when they come seeking an opportunity, we ask them what experience they have, or we ask them where they volunteered. And so we want to see a resume. They don't have a resume. They are living their life and creating their resume. So I think we need to stop and understand who they are much better than we do. What drives you? What are your motivations? What can I do to help you achieve all of the things that you want to do? That's how we unlock their potential.
That is amazing. You said something that actually struck a chord with me. Instead of deciding for youth, let's talk to them first. Yeah. Let's hear them.
We've been doing a lot of that as part of the campaign for the last 6 months. You know, when we couldn't see people in person like this, my team did a lot of Zoom calls. And I remember doing at least 2 or 3 with youth between 16 and 18. 16 and 18, I mean, they can't necessarily vote, and some of them will be voting for the very first time. The depth of their questions, their level of understanding of civic issues, I can tell you we will be in very good hands if we listen to them.
Well, that's a lot to think about, and I thank you so much for bringing some insight to this question. And this show is about people, places, and events. So let's lighten things up a bit. And I have 2 more questions for you. One funny one and one more serious. Now I'll start with the funny one first.
Okay.
So what's your favorite food?
Oh, my favorite food. You know what? I don't often get to eat well on the campaign trail because everything is so busy. But I'll tell you, if I can find a good taco, I'm all over it. I love tacos. Tacos make me very happy. So
I wish you could just get one taco.
If anyone's out there, tacos.
That is cool. That's cool. Now, so let's take it up a notch and give our voters some vision for the future. So, at the end of your term in office, if elected, what would you hope to have accomplished?
Ooh, you know what? You know what I love about this question is you're asking about the term in office. And I think it's important to recognize that the electorate votes you in for a 4-year term, and they expect you to deliver results. They don't want to know that you're going to run for 4 years and then you'll run again, and in the next 4 years you'll do this. What are you going to do for them in that 4 years where they've put confidence behind you? What are you going to deliver? That's how I view my role as a public servant. And in the next 4 years, I think it's important to remember there will not be ribbon cuttings, there will not be a lot of grand openings, because these 4 years are going to be the very hard decisions that we have to make and the really tricky work of laying a strong foundation for future prosperity. I think 10 years from now, when we look at our city and we see a mayor that's saying, look at how vibrant we are, look at how we recovered, that mayor might not be me. But I will be very proud of the foundational work that I did for 4 years to allow other people to succeed after me. That's what I'm focused on.
That is amazing because, for a building to stand properly, it needs a good foundation.
It does, it does. Sometimes it's thankless. The person that does the heavy work at the beginning is not often the one that's there at the end when the full job is done. Yeah. And I understand that. This is not about ego, this is about doing the hard work. And I think that hard work is going to require a lot of humility, a lot of compassion, and the desire to work with other people to make sure that we get this right.
And it's a part of philosophy of life. When people look at the building, when people look at a beautiful building or an edifice, oh, this is beautiful, this is nice. They don't see the foundation. No. They see the building and they appreciate what is on top, but there's something on the ground that is keeping that beauty to shine.
That's right.
Thank you so much for your time, Jyoti. It's a pleasure having you on this show, and I wish you the very best on election day. And if you want to know more about Jyoti, kindly check out the website on this video. And we hope to see you on election day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. October 18th. Make sure you vote.
Bye for now.